Hey, this is Pastor Bunjee Garrett, and I want to take some time today to present you with another word of encouragement. Well, just in case you haven't heard, you might be interested to know that President Trump just paused all military aid to Ukraine, and yeah, this includes any and all weapons currently in transit. There should be no doubt that this decision is in response to the heated conversation that just took place last Friday during the meeting that President Trump had with Zelensky there at the White House. Now, in case you missed it, it was last Friday. That's when Zelensky met with President Trump and Vice President Vance, and they tried to hammer out a plan for ending the war between Ukraine and Russia. And this plan included Zelensky's agreement to grant the U.S. access to his country's rare earth minerals. But rather than rushing to sign this deal, the meeting erupted into a shouting match which was witnessed by the world. Now let's not forget that Zelensky and the Ukrainians, they've received hundreds of billions of dollars in U.S. aid, and yet it's still not enough. Zelensky is still no closer to winning this war than he was 3 years ago. That being the case, President Trump is convinced that Zelensky doesn't really want peace with Russia. It's for this reason that he accused Zelensky of gambling with World War III. President Trump also accused Zelensky of being more interested in handouts than in peace treaties. Here's how he put it in a statement that he just posted on Truth Social, and I quote him here. "This is the worst statement that could have been made by Zelensky, and America will not put up with it for much longer. It is what I was saying. This guy doesn't want there to be peace as long as he has America's backing." And Europe, in the meeting they had with Zelensky, stated flatly that they cannot do the job without the U.S. Probably not a great statement to have been made in terms of a show of strength against Russia. What are they thinking? Rather than embracing Trump's plan for creating peace between Russia and Ukraine, Zelensky just wants more and more money. He wants more and more weapons as he continues to cash in on this conflict. And with that being the case, well, I wasn't surprised to wake up and learn that President Trump has now paused all military aid to Ukraine. At the same time, we shouldn't be surprised as we watch the European nations like Germany and France and Italy and Spain. They're showing their support more and more for the creation of a European Union army. One political leader in the Netherlands recently shared an image of tanks, battleships, and jets heading into battle under the flags of Europe, and he posted this on social media. Now, in light of these things, I can't help but to ask, are we now watching the fulfillment of the prophecy that the Lord revealed to King Nebuchadnezzar through a dream which was then interpreted by the prophet Daniel? This is found in Daniel chapter 2, where we learn about the dream of King Nebuchadnezzar, which included this great image of a man whose splendor was excellent and its form was awesome. The image's head was of fine gold, its chest and arms was made of silver, its belly and thighs of bronze, its legs were made of iron, and its feet was made partly of iron and partly of clay. And it was during that dream when Nebuchadnezzar saw a stone being cut out without hands, and that stone struck the image on its feet of iron and clay, and it broke the entire image into pieces. And as a result, the iron, the clay, the bronze, the silver, and the gold were all crushed together, and it all became chaff that was blown away by the wind. And as the stone struck that image, the stone became then a great mountain that filled the whole earth. And after describing this dream to King Nebuchadnezzar, the prophet Daniel then proceeded to interpret the meaning of the dream for the king. And it's in Daniel chapter 2 where the prophet declares this. He says, "You, O king, are a king of kings, for the God of heaven has given you a kingdom, power, strength, and glory. And wherever the children of men dwell, or the beasts of the field and the birds of the heavens, he has given them into your hand and has made you ruler over them all. You are this head of gold. But after you shall arise another kingdom inferior to yours, then another, a third kingdom of bronze, which shall rule over all the earth. And the fourth kingdom shall be as strong as iron, inasmuch as iron breaks in pieces and shatters everything. And like iron that crushes, that kingdom will break in pieces and crush all the others. Whereas you saw the feet and toes partly of potter's clay and partly of iron, the kingdom shall be divided, yet the strength of the iron shall be in it, just as you saw the iron mixed with ceramic clay. And as the toes of the feet were partly of iron and partly of clay, so the kingdom shall be partly strong and partly fragile. As you saw iron mixed with ceramic clay, they will mingle with the seed of men, but they will not adhere to one another, just as iron does not mix with clay. And in the days of these kings, the God of heaven will set up a kingdom which shall never be destroyed. And the kingdom shall not be left to other people. It shall break in pieces and consume all these kingdoms, and it shall stand forever. Now here in these verses we find the prophet Daniel. He's helping King Nebuchadnezzar to understand the meaning of his dream. And according to Daniel, the different sections of the great image, which was made of different materials, these materials all represented the different kingdoms which would rise up after the fall of Babylon. Well, thankfully, hindsight now helps us to know that the chest and the arms, which were made of silver, this was a reference to the Medo-Persian Empire. The belly and thighs of bronze was a reference to the Grecian Empire. And then the legs of iron is a reference to the eastern and western regions of the Roman Empire. And the feet of iron and clay, this is the revived Roman Empire, which is then divided up into 10 kingdoms that are weakened by the clay. Now, I'm sure we all realize that the Roman Empire was never completely conquered. And while there are many who talk about the fall of Rome, it's important for us to realize that the eastern and western regions of the Roman Empire continue to exist, and yet in a way that is weaker after the iron rule of the Roman Empire was then mixed down with clay. And this can be seen in the different regions where monarchies have been replaced with democracies. It's also interesting to note that there's going to be a revival of this Roman Empire in the last days as the 10 toes of the great image. This is fulfilled by the 10 kingdom confederacy, which will give way to the rise of the Antichrist, who will rule over the earth for the 7 years of the tribulation and great tribulation. Now, proof of my point can be found in Daniel chapter 7, where the prophet Daniel describes 4 beasts coming up out of the sea, which correspond with the great image that King Nebuchadnezzar dreamed about. And it's the 4th beast that provides us with more details about the 10 kingdoms which will give way to the rise of the Antichrist. Here's how the prophet Daniel describes it. It's Daniel 7 verse 7 where he writes, "After this I saw in the night visions, and behold, a 4th beast, dreadful and terrible, exceedingly strong. It had huge iron teeth. It was devouring, breaking in pieces, and trampling the residue with its feet. It was different from all the beasts that were before it, and it had 10 horns. I was considering the horns, and there was another horn, a little one, coming up from among them, before whom 3 of the first horns were plucked out by the roots. And there in this horn were eyes like the eyes of a man, and a mouth speaking pompous words." Now here in these verses we find this parallel between the 10 toes of the statue of Nebuchadnezzar and the 10 horns of this 4th beast. And from these 10 horns there arises another horn which will get rid of 3 of the horns. And just to be clear, this little horn is none other than the Antichrist. Here's how the Apostle John describes this in Revelation chapter 17. It's verse 12 where he declares, "The 10 horns which you saw are 10 kings who have received no kingdom as yet, but they receive authority for 1 hour as kings with the beast. These are of one mind, and they will give their power and authority to the beast." In other words, the 10 horns, which correspond with the 10 toes of the great image, they're actually 10 kingdoms that came from the eastern and western regions of the Roman Empire. And while these 10 kings are going to join together, they're going to give their power to the Antichrist, who will then usher in the time of Jacob's trouble. And with all that being the case, I can't help but to wonder, are we currently watching the western side of the Roman Empire combining forces through the creation of a European Union army? And if so, then it seems reasonable to believe that this brings us one step closer to the rise of the Antichrist. And not only that, but we can also be certain that this will also culminate in the second coming of Jesus Christ. Here's how the prophet Daniel describes this in Daniel chapter 7. It's here where he declares, "I watched then because of the sound of the pompous words which the horn was speaking. I watched till the beast was slain, and its body destroyed and given to the burning flame. As for the rest of the beasts, they had their dominion taken away, yet their lives were prolonged for a season and a time. I was watching in the night visions, and behold, one like the Son of Man coming with the clouds of heaven. And he came to the Ancient of Days, and they brought him near before him. Then to him was given dominion and glory and a kingdom, that all peoples, nations, and languages should serve him. His dominion is an everlasting dominion which shall not pass away, and his kingdom the one which shall not be destroyed." Listen, rather than stressing out about all the wars and the rumors of wars that we continue to hear about, don't stress about it. Let's just look forward to the day when Jesus will establish his everlasting dominion according to the promises that we find in his prophetic word. Until that day when we find ourselves face to face with the King of Kings, let's just continue to fight the good fight of faith, and all for the glory of God.